All right, yeah. So we got UFC, Nelly and Luda, Future's album, Nav selling, Ahmad, stimulus chips, bodies, UFOs, conspiracy theories, and you just supposed to be like, all right, cool, that's a bet. No, you were like, hold on, nigga, what? Wow, this man's tripping right now. Oh yeah, it's like yo, oh, so you just thought you was gonna let that slide past me, huh? Hey, listen, man,
I
stimulus
didn't
chips,
think
bodies.
like, well, no, because we had spoke about it a little bit prior. I was just like, oh, it's gonna be okay. We'll be all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. This is the Highly Advised podcast today. This is episode 9, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
episode
Yes.
9. It's me, Spence, two of my co hosts, Lau, Nigel.
What's going on, y'all?
It's good.
What y'all been up to for the so far, man? How y'all been?
Wow.
God damn.
I thought I was gonna start talking, but I've been good for this week. It's been a good week and stuff like that. Per usual, just teleworking. I got my school stuff straightened out. A little bit of news, but my time has come from serving our country, so I'm getting ready to get that paperwork finished so I could be 100% a civilian again. So that's just what I've been dealing with, and yeah, that's it. And some interesting things happened to me throughout the week. So, but that's it.
Yeah, definitely salute the troops. Me and Lyle have been in for about 6 years now, and the
This
journey's finally
about
coming to
Lau.
an
This ain't
end.
about you, yo. This ain't about you.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
We can
You're
talk
right.
about your situation later, all right?
Well, no, when it comes up, it's fine. But no, like it's definitely
No,
salute
we'll
the
skip it.
troops and like it. No, it's good that you're finally getting out. How does it feel to almost be a free man again?
Honestly, man, it feels great. I'm looking forward to it because Nigel, like where we work with. I mean, we still have to be careful on how we act and how we carry ourselves. But like being in the uniform, like it comes with a lot of responsibilities, but also restrictions. So just to be a civilian again, 100% civilian, it feels good because it's kind of like we put in our time, we did our stuff that we had to do, and I was fortunate enough to be deployed and go overseas. I did partake in real life important missions and all that, and I just feel good. And my time is up. I feel like I met the criteria and I did what was asked of me to do, and it's time for me to move on to another journey. So
That's
Spence,
what's
I
up,
know
my boy.
you got some good news as well.
Yeah, I mean, before I even get into that though, congratulations on all that.
thank you.
It's beautiful seeing having friends that serve this country. God bless America. Um, just gotta enjoy those type of things. Having good friends that really got friends that really hold this country down, man. You never. It's rare to see people like that, but
Appreciate it.
absolutely, my brother, my brother, my brother.
Yes.
Um, next, before we'll have Nigel doing the same thing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But for the meantime, he'll be holding the country down as much as he can.
Yeah.
Appreciate everything you're doing out here, man. Hopefully, I can hang out with you one of these days while you're still in uniform. Protecting this country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Appreciate everything that you're doing, man.
it is something to be proud of at the end of the day.
To God be the glory.
When I do, make my way out, it'll be my time, and you know, everybody has their time when they're gonna leave, and we'll see when that happens.
Even like for my week though, my week was pretty cool. A real chill week. Didn't really do much. Got myself together because Saturday, which was yesterday, I graduated. Um,
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Having a chance to talking to my mother, I was like, yo, I'm like the first person in our family to graduate college.
Really?
To like,
That's a
yeah,
milestone.
yeah, like it wasn't until I really thought about it. I'm the first person out of my like immediate family. Like I have cousins and stuff that graduate, but like out of like my grandmother's like tree, I'm the first person to ever go to college and graduate.
Yeah, that's a milestone for real, man. And you're
Yeah,
leading
I
the
never really
charge.
thought. Yeah, I was thinking about that because I was telling my mother about like the hypothetical children I'll have one day. And I was like, damn. I was like, bull. At least the bull can do is just graduate college. At least, man. I did that. So you know what I mean? You should be able to get that out the way real quick.
It's
And
a
then
it's
be
a thing to be
overall,
proud of, man. It's a big
yeah,
accomplishment.
it is. Yeah, that's a fact. Like I don't really trick too much off of it. It's I believe in not getting too like enjoying the moment, but not getting too lost in it. So
Yeah.
right now I'm still enjoying everything. After we get done recording this, I'll probably go back downstairs and chill with some family. I had some family stop by that I wasn't aware of prior to recording, so I'll probably go talk to them a little bit more and everything like that. So it's been pretty good overall. Hey yo, you know what's crazy, right? So last night I had like a pina colada, right? I gotten like
Okay.
some coconut cream to make a pina colada.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
I'm singing the pina colada song.
Okay.
Oh, that's a classic.
And yeah, so do you guys know what that song is about?
Yeah, he was going to cheat on his wife, and his wife was, practically doing the same thing, and then it ended up meeting up at the same place, realizing, hey, we're about to cheat on each other.
Yeah, I never knew that till today.
Sound like some swingers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, he would like in the song he legitimately says like, "Yo, I'm tired of my wife, yo."
Yeah.
Oh, so they're not okay with it. They're like, hey, like this shit's happening.
Yeah, they're actively trying to cheat on each other.
Yeah.
He did say, "Yo, I read her post while she was laying in bed next to me."
Yeah.
And
Hey, I
it's like,
mean, I guess it is what it is. Like, that sounds kind of
yeah,
wild. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. But
yeah,
the song is one of my favorite, like, non-rap songs because it sounds really good. It's an entertaining song. It's definitely an old head song, too. You know what I mean?
that's a fact. It's definitely a fact. Like that's one thing I can say I enjoy about the song because it just fits. It's one of them timeless joints that you don't see too often.
Yeah.
So just like I had a chance to watch, like I don't know if you noticed this, but like with the UFC lately, right? It
Hmm.
seems like there's a couple fights that you're seeing more of that should be stopped earlier than what they should be, than what they are. Like, because some people believe that the Tony Ferguson fight shouldn't have lasted 5 rounds, shouldn't have gone as far as it did. And I think we had talked about that last week, but I think it was Anthony Smith, or I believe it was.
Yeah. And
Anthony
so
Yeah,
Smith
like
versus Glover Teixeira.
Tajera, bro. Pronounce it
Tajera,
right.
or whatever.
hold on, what
We
did
know,
you
we know who he
call
is.
Glover?
Huh?
What
A
did you
UFC
call
fighter. That's
Glover?
what I called
Texera.
him.
He clearly pronounced it Tajera, but Nigel wants to be American.
Right.
It's like, oh, Texera.
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 So that means
Tell that to
Nigel should
him.
be pronounced nickel, right?
If that's the way you feel, then by all means you can pronounce that. But
Nickel, nickel.
One
And
few
my name
letters short of
should
Schmoogle,
definitely
man.
be pronounced as it looks.
no, your name would be like La Uzi or something like that. Like it'd be all types of
Yeah,
crazy.
it'd be crazy as hell.
Laosi.
Yeah,
Laosi. Nah, my shit would still be the same. I think Nigel, it's fun. A funny fact. I think I misspelled Nigel's name in my phone for like maybe like 5 years.
Didn't you
It
just
used to be like,
recently change it?
yeah, like your name used to be used to be Nigel, I think. It was like Niguel. I honestly, bro, when I got your number the first time, I was like, I have no idea how to spell Nigel. And I know it's an E after the G. I just don't know if there's a U, so I'm gonna just throw you in here.
The crazy thing is that I, I've met a couple Nigels and all of their names are spelt the same. So I don't understand where the confusion comes in. You know what I mean? I just don't get it. It's like, all right, I just kind of let it go. But as long as you pronounce it right, I don't really care how you spell it unless it's like important. You know what I mean? But as far as like Anthony Smith goes and the whole stoppage within that fight, it's kind of crazy because he alluded to being hurt in prior rounds, saying like, "Oh, my teeth are being knocked out." I think he got his orbital bone fractured in that fight. It looked really bad for him from like the third round on to the finish, and that fight could have easily been done in the third, if not early in the fourth. He wasn't even really fighting back. He just kind of looked like he was in the fight, but he wasn't really in the fight. I was thinking about it the other day when he fought John Jones. He was still in the fight for all 5 rounds, but at a certain point, it just looked like he kind of just covered up and just didn't really fight back a lot. It was almost like a much worse version of that,
yeah, he.
except he was just getting beat on.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was actually in this fight that happened on Wednesday. You could tell that he was actually really really hurt, and a lot of MMA analysts came out. Former MMA fighters like Chael Sonnen and Michael Bisping. They came out and they were like getting on his corner on not throwing in the towel. He clearly could not compete at a high level no more after that third round. I think one of the biggest complaints about MMA right now is the fact that since the fighters are too good for their own well-being, the corners are like refusing to throw in towels. Like in boxing, you know, a corner will throw in the towel, like the Deontay Wilder. But for Anthony Smith, for some reason, his corner was like, we seen that he stood up and he could still throw a punch.
Hmm?
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, I just think that he needs to get a new team because that Glover Teixeira beat him up so bad that Anthony Smith, we probably won't see him for the rest of this year.
Yeah, more than
Easily.
likely.
Like he's gonna have to take a break, and it's just I haven't seen somebody get beat up like that in quite a bit of time. Just where they look like they just shouldn't have been in there. I don't want to say I felt bad for him, but definitely the fight should have been ended a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for last night's event, I thought the fight should have in the first round.
I agree with that. It was damn close to being ended, and Alistair Overeem barely made it out of the first round. I felt he was lucky he had the right judge in there.
Yeah. You mean ref?
Yeah, thank you.
I saw more from like Twitter, if anything, where you had like Francis Ngannou like congratulated him for like his comeback, like this being his first comeback fight since his loss of his daughter, his stepdaughter, I believe.
Yeah, Walt Harris, yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up falling asleep by then. Like I had been running around. I was so tired from yesterday, so I didn't have a chance. I was watching the fights, but when I got to around, I think the second fight, the fight before theirs, I had just passed out. So, but it looked from what it sounded like, it sounded like Alistair wasn't going to have a chance. Didn't really have a chance in the fight though.
That first round, I gave it to Walt Harris because that fight should have been stopped. But for some reason, the referee, you know, let Alistair Overeem get his consciousness back. And then Walt Harris, he slipped up on the high kick, which Alistair was able to, you know, basically lay and prey on him for the rest of the round. The second round, you could tell Walt Harris was kind of gassed because he like blew his load. So Alistair caught him with a head kick. After the head kick, he proceeded just to basically pound him out until the ref stepped in. And even though Alistair won the fight, and I don't like Alistair Overeem neither because he's a steroid abusing. But
you can't front on him at that time. Like, he was killing shit at the time.
Yeah, you know, when you're full of juice, you know, they said what they said. Mark McGuire was in baseball too, right?
Yeah, that's a crazy comparison, man. But you're not lying though. It's like TRT Beltor.
Yeah,
Belfort. Jeez.
Vitor Belfort. You stick him in Brazil when the commission down there does a test for steroids against Brazilians. They do against, you know, foreigners, but against Brazilians they won't test them. You know,
TRT Belfort was a different breed.
Yeah.
That's how Michael Bisping literally has one eye now because of him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know,
I didn't know that's what it was. That fight. It was from that fight.
Yeah. So, because he was full of juice, you know, and he was able to become the Hulk that night. But one thing I will say about Alistair Overeem, after he did beat Walt Harris, he didn't like, you know, parade about it. He went over and showed him mad love and respect because like Walt Harris, honestly, he probably should have taken a little bit more time before he fought again. But for him just to come back after losing his daughter and all that, and in the tragic way that he did lose his daughter and fight, that's already a win of its own. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's why it seemed like that. Because when I woke up this morning, when I looked at on Twitter, it gave the impression that he still won the fight, despite like you guys saying like he lost. He technically lost, but I can understand that then just from the heroic aspect of coming back after taking a life loss.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a win in itself, you know, just the fact that he was able to, because I can't imagine really losing somebody in that way and just coming back that fast. And I can only imagine that affected his fight, you know what I mean? Like he said that he spent a lot of time just drinking and self-medicating, and that didn't really lead to having the best fight camp ever. And I can't imagine his life really led to having the best fight camp ever. So the fact that he went in there and almost finished the fight in the first round says something, you know?
Yeah, you could definitely tell he was mentally, he wasn't there. He was really emotional because like when he landed that the basically fight ending punch, he like blew his load. He didn't pick his shots, take his time. He just went in for the kill, and I felt like it was just one of those moments where he was like, "Look, I'm gonna kill this nigga for the sake of my daughter, even though he didn't do it, you know."
Right.
So I feel like he, you know, him take his time just for him just to heal. I think he'll come back stronger, and we'll see him again in some more fun fights and all that. So even though he did lose on the record, like on paper he lost, I feel like he really didn't lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's one of them fights where it's different than DC, but after DC lost his daughter, he came back to fight. Like it was an emotional experience for him as well, and he just kind of had he eventually ascended to being like the champion. But this was like this is what, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, or a little bit longer than that, I believe, when he lost his daughter. So I mean, hopefully, I wish Walt Harris nothing but the best. Hopefully we get to see him like in that top three eventually down the line. Who knows? Hopefully this situation inspires him to work that much harder to get him to that next level. So despite it being a loss, and because you always I think a situation like this is, granted, you still got to follow the politics of fighting. You also understand hey, the UFC did him a favor, but he also looked out for the UFC.
Right.
And then having such a big story as your first fight, it'll probably lead to him having some other fight. Because I think Dana, just like anybody else, knows if you got a good story, all you need is a guy that's a pretty decent fighter.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is just find a way for him to win. Essentially, kind of what they were saying about Conor McGregor at first.
Seeing him fight last night, I really did want him to win though. It's I was rooting for him really hard. I was just like, man, I just want to see him be able to succeed after this situation that he went through. And unfortunately, it didn't happen for him last night. But I think he will. I think if you can persevere through that type of situation, then you can get back to your feet. If not to where you were, at least to a point where you can be successful again. Because I think that's one of the hardest blows you're probably going to deal with.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. Hey, yo, quick question. Speaking on the UFC, did you guys see about Conor McGregor trying to challenge Gaethje?
Yeah.
Just as I was saying last week, or our MMA podcast that we did last week, I was like, I see this fight happening. Now Dana, he's came out because I think Khabib's father is going through some health issues, so the fight won't happen until September apparently. And Dana seems adamant on doing Gaethje and Khabib, and he said that Conor has other plans, which is going to further speculate. It's Chael's rumor, which is maybe the Masvidal fight is coming, or it might be the Diaz trilogy. But I seen this one coming from a mile away, man. I seen this one. I think Gaethje, I felt like Conor and Gaethje was going to be a thing. I think if Gaethje comes out and tells Dana, "Oh yeah, I want Conor," Dana is going to forget all about Khabib and set this fight up.
There are two other things that could happen too. Like Spence just said, I've heard rumors of Floyd and I heard rumors of GSP coming back and fighting him at welterweight, which I don't think that would happen. I think they're
payday.
Yeah, it would be a major payday. But if there's any way they could get Floyd to fight Conor again, they're gonna set that fight up again. No matter what. Khabib can wait. I think that Floyd would be the moneymaker, of course, for everybody. So I doubt that they would change that.
And you know what's sad about it? There's a chance that Conor, would do better in the rematch, but Floyd will still win.
Absolutely. And if Floyd wins, it's just kind of like the exhibition thing. It's no scratch hold. Nobody gives them any points for it. We're just watching it. If they were to have that fight in the next month or two, everybody in the world will watch it. Just because it's taking two sports again and having those two guys fight against each other once again, but in the same breath, there's nothing else going on in the world. Who knows? In 2 months, we may start having football coming back, and maybe the basketball figures out finds a way of bringing back some of the playoffs. Who knows? But that would be a huge sell. But even if he did the Gaethje fight, even not the Gaethje, if he did the GSP fight, it would probably be something. I think it still would sell. It won't sell at the same numbers, but I think in terms of UFC fans, it would definitely sell. That would probably do. I'm quite sure buys. He might do over a million buys easily.
If you talking about Conor and GSP,
yeah,
I think it would do over 2 million if it was Conor and GSP.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to do. Did
I could.
Floyd won? Did Connor Floyd the first time they fought? Did they do over 2 million?
No, the first time Conor Floyd fought, they did. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Spence. I know they did over 4 million, but was it over five or it was almost? Because I know
Yeah,
it didn't break the Pacquiao number, which is the highest selling pay per view for boxing. Well, period. But it definitely broke a lot of other pay per view records.
Yeah, it 4.3 million
Yeah.
is
See,
how many.
Mm. Okay, then yeah, I can see you doing two though.
Yeah.
because
Now you
remember,
said,
I didn't
yeah,
know it went that high.
yeah. What you're talking about the Floyd Connor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, I knew it went high. I knew it was high. I didn't realize it was 4 million, but 2 million. I mean, that would make sense for it to be 4 million. Then you can easily get 2 million out of the Connor versus you
GSP.
probably GSP. To be honest with you, you probably could get maybe 3 million off that fight. Three
I
million
wouldn't be.
buys because
I wouldn't be surprised neither. Yeah.
if you stack a card,
Yeah.
if you created the perfect card where you have John Jones fight, if you had Connor versus GSP, uh, John versus Francis Ngannou,
Oh
DC versus like just those two fights alone. We're not even gonna bring DC into it. If you just for those two fights alone, Francis versus John and GSP versus Connor, that fight might be able to do over 3 million buys.
that would break the
I,
MMA record because the current MMA record is like 2.4 with Conor Habib.
I think Dana White recently came out and said that he's not trying to do Francis versus John. I think that Dana would try and keep John away from Francis just because he knows that that's a risky fight.
I
Yeah,
think I think Dana wants to do the Reyes and Jones rematch, but I think John doesn't want to do that unless Dana brings out the pocketbooks.
Exactly.
yeah. To be honest with you, I think that's probably is smart on John's behalf to do it that way, where it's like, okay, I'm granted it's deemed running from a fight, but at the same time, it's like, yo, try to get paid because that Reyes fight is a risky fight for
It is.
at the end of the day. Because despite John winning the fight, you have a decent amount of people that think Reyes won the fight. So if Reyes was to go back, fine tune everything, like it all really just depends on what happens with John if that's the case. But I don't know. I think there's some good competitions out there. Speaking of competitions, actually, did you watch the Nelly fight? Not the Nelly fight, but the Ludacris versus Nelly
I,
Yeah,
competition.
I saw some of it and it was good at first until apparently, I guess, the rain knocked Nelly's connection completely out and he really couldn't play much of anything. I think he got like one song off, and then after that, Ludacris played an unreleased track with him and Lil Wayne 3 times in a row. And I was like, okay, like when are we actually going to get to the songs again? And by that time, I was kind of I lost my interest.
How about you, La?
no, I didn't watch that, but I did see like posts that people would put on Instagram about it, and I see like a lot of people making fun of Nelly's Wi-Fi incident, and also seeing that a lot of people said like once Nelly got his Wi-Fi back on, Ludacris smoked up. Which you guys pretty much nailed on the head from last week.
Yeah, they were doing it where it was at first, just like Nigel said, it was like they started round one, and then the weather was just so trash that you saw not Connor, you saw that Nelly was just on some like, yo, my internet keeps breaking up. Da da da. I honestly, I thought they were going to reschedule this
I
whole.
think they should have rescheduled
Like
it.
they
'Cause
should.
I
They
turned that
should.
shit off.
Actually, I did the same thing. I turned mine off and I would check it periodically. Eventually, they did the battle, but I ended up having to watch most of it on YouTube. I watched half of it, and it's just like Nelly's having internet issues the whole time. Like he's starting to talk all on the mic, talking about, oh yeah, you know how they want to give you the history of like how a song came. He's giving you the history, and everybody in the comments are like, dude, just play the music before your Wi-Fi turns off again. Like he had Wi-Fi like Teddy Riley, man.
Oh God, it was that bad.
Yes, like it would just turn off at the drop of a dime.
So with this versus thing, I was talking to Lisa about it, and I asked her if she watched it. And she said that she didn't really tune in to him like that because she felt like after like the first few, it's kind of like all right, cool, but she was like, for her, it just started like the theme started getting old kind of quick. And that's interesting because I was wondering if other people thought of the same thing. Now I go in the shade room, and people are actually they're like it's cool that these older artists are doing it, but they would prefer to see like current generation artists to do like some hits, like for example, like Future versus Young Thug or something like that, or like Chris Brown against another top R&B artist, like Trey Songz or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I think that'd be kind of cool to keep things, to keep the more, I guess, younger crowd in it, because
Right.
a lot of the younger crowd, they don't know, they're not gonna listen to Jill Scott and Erica Badu and all that, because they're not hip to that, you know what I mean? And Nelly versus Ludacris, we both know the young crowd ain't really messing with that, because it's just that wasn't their generations of music. So I wonder
Right.
if the versus battle, because the next one I seen, like the next one might be Snoop Dogg versus Busta Rhymes. I'm like, okay, that's not a bad battle or whatever, but that's once again like that's for like the older generation. It's not for the people of today.
Yeah.
I think it would be good to have a little bit of a mixture of the two, definitely for sure. Like, because not, I feel like when you do that, you're introducing like some of the younger crowd to some of this older music, but you can also introduce some of the older crowd to some of the newer music, and just make it part of the same series. Like, everybody's going to want to tune in to see as to what's going on, and not to say that everybody's going to tune in, because definitely, your preference of artists is definitely going to determine what you tune into overall.
Right.
But at the same point in time, I think it would be good just to switch it up.
I agree. I think switching up makes more sense because you want to have like everybody from the younger crowd to the newer crowd more engaged in it. But at the same time, it's probably hard for Switzerland to see it that way just because one, I hate to say it, they're older acts. So to them, they're seeing it like, oh, like I get to see Babyface versus Teddy Riley. That'd be like them. That'd be like us seeing Pharrell versus Timberland.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, that would be like us seeing Pharrell versus Dr. Dre. But like you said, like if you had if the younger kids had somebody to listen to, like granted, I think they've done some on like the independent side where it's like, so I think it was Trippie Redd versus somebody. I think French Montana did one with Tory Lanez, but it's just not backed by verses. And I think
Okay,
that's
yeah, not backed by that brand, right? I feel what you're saying.
yeah. So, but if it's not backed by the brand, it's hard for it to get that word out there. So I don't know. Like to me, I think I like the battles that I'm seeing so far. I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to sit in for the Snoop Dogg one and Busta Rhymes one. I think Snoop Dogg will probably beat him. I think Snoop Dogg will probably beat him, but I also think like it's just one of those battles where it's like, it's not music I really care. It's not music I was listening to in my day in and day out. It's going to be interesting though. See where they go with this.
I definitely would like to see it a switch up. Definitely. I think they should do. I would like to see like new generation producers get into the mix as well, not just new generation like rapper or artists. Let me just say that in total artists. Like for example, like imagine like Pierre versus Metro Boomin. You know what I mean? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like their most popular songs, but just like beats.
Right.
That would be pretty cool too. But
But see, I don't know how well that's going to do. I think for them they're just looking for numbers because Boy Wonder and Hit Boy did one also. They did
I didn't
one
know
through
that.
the verse. Yeah, Hit Boy versus Boy Wonder. They did that one like in March or beginning of April. That was like one of the first battles that was done. It was definitely nice, but it was a lot of not issues, but like preference wise, like the speaker quality wasn't great. So it was one of those things in the infancy stage. So just seeing that, I think you'll have more artists that are younger or producers, hopefully, that go into it. But I agree with you. I would prefer younger artists, like someone like Metro versus maybe Southside. I would like to see. I think that would be a good one. But they keep pegging a lot of times. They just keep pegging like the old acts versus the new acts, or just the old acts versus each other, just because of how big they are. If they could get Drake on that shit, if they could do Drake versus, I don't even know who would be the best matchup for Drake.
Kendrick, J. Cole. I think those are the only two people, because I like to say Big Sean could fit in there somewhere, but I think
Big Sean doesn't have the hits to compete, man. Kendrick and J. Cole are the only two that can compete with Drake if we're just talking about like the versus side of things.
Well, let's say we can't get Big Sean. We can get Big Sean in there, but who would face Big Sean? Who do you think you would put him against?
Who were some of the artists that was like really popping around the time? That
I
Big
mean,
Maybe
Sean
Wale, maybe.
nah, I
Okay,
don't think Wale. I think you got to get somebody a little bit bigger than Wale.
Meek.
Mm,
Meek might be a good one because
nah.
Big Sean. I think people sleep on Big Sean and they don't give him the credit that he deserves sometimes.
Yeah, I agree to that. I definitely agree to that. I got a friend of mine that constantly just says, "Oh, only thing Big Sean talks about is wobbly wobbly." I'm like, bro, that's from 2000. That's from like 2011. He's like, no, he still says "whoa" there. Like, come on, bro. Like,
Oh
you
wow.
gotta switch it. Yeah, I'm like, yo, you don't listen to him enough. Like, I don't know. To be honest with you, I really don't know who would be a good artist for Sean the Face. I don't think Meek would be a good artist. I'd rather see Meek against like another like street rapper.
But
Um,
what other street rapper?
Is on the same level as Meek.
Yeah, in Meek's time, yeah, it's on the same level as him. The only one I could think of, and they're not even on like the popularity level, that would, that you could compare probably like a street point to be somebody like Young Dolph or whatever, right? Because Young Dolph was popping too, but he's nowhere near as popping and doesn't have like the hits. Like,
yeah. I mean, I feel you on that. I wouldn't say them. I wouldn't say him, but I would. I don't know. For some reason, I think to some extent because street music is a little bit different today. Definitely during that time, the type of music Meek was putting out, I could see him going against a Future, maybe Future or maybe Thug. But I'd rather see Thug versus Future, to be honest.
Yeah,
So,
I
Thug
say,
so
versus Future is what I want to say.
yeah, that right there, that's like the fantasy matchup right there. But me going against Future or me going against Thug wouldn't be bad matchup though, because it's like they're around the same time frame as well as being popping. And honestly, I wouldn't be mad at somebody if they chose me against those.
Speaking of Future, did y'all get a chance to listen to his new album?
Yeah, did you guys?
yeah, I listened to most of it. I think I listened to the whole thing. Like because of this quarantine thing, man, I just press play. I press play and then like I'll catch maybe one or two songs that I actually like more. For this album, it's pretty good. At first, I didn't care for it. For some reason it was missing something. It's still missing something, but it's I think whatever I think it was missing, I was basing off an old project. Like Future did pretty decent with this one. Still talking that toxic shit as always.
That's what he's good for.
Exactly. Listen, man, Future is a different type of person at the end of the day. Well, in terms of like persona, you can say like you could probably say he's like the heel of like rap to some extent, just in terms of like from what a female fan base.
Yeah, from a female fan base, he's definitely a heel.
Yeah, it's like he just considered hella toxic for some.
I saw a clip of him earlier in the week, and there he had a woman sitting in a pool, and she was like, "I'm here for you," and his response to her was, "You mean for us?" And that was just it.
Oh
like
yeah,
Future is a different type of dude, man. Like it's kind of crazy to see some of the stuff he says, but it's extremely entertaining. I'm not gonna lie.
So my like thoughts on the album, I think Dirty Sprite 2, or I think that's what the acronyms, right, for DS2, Dirty Sprite 2, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, I still think that's his best album. This album, High Off Life, is not a bad effort at all, but I think that some of the songs on there is kind of like, while the other songs are kind of like, okay, this is kind of hard. I think this album is definitely better than his last album, which was what, the Hendrix album. This album
no,
will be a
this
bit
isn't
more.
better.
Say that again.
It's not better than Hendrix.
I'm gonna be real, man. I didn't hear anybody at all.
Hendrix, and that's fine, but that's absolutely fine. I would just say Hendrix is like I think Hendrix may be more of, and no shot at you or anything, but like I think that might be for his core fan base more of
Okay.
because like Hendrix is like one. I think Hendrix is one of those albums where that because what you consider Toxic Future is partially comes from like Hendrix.
I like this High Off Life. I think it's good. It went gold on the first day. They were like, "Oh yeah, it
that's
went gold
dope.
first day," which is pretty dope. But he went gold on the first day. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because Life is Good is on there, and Life is Good remix, and a lot of people thought those were Drake songs, and not realized it was actually a Future song. And if you think about it, nobody really likes the song for Future's part. They all like it. So,
I'm not sure if I agree with that because I know a few people
Yeah,
like Future's part on that song.
well, I mean, that's fine then.
yeah.
But I mean,
Who are these people that you're talking to? Are they like the measuring stick for like?
No, no, they're not the measure stick. They're people with opinions like you and me. I'm just saying if they share opinions, I'm just stating the opinions that I heard, and majority of opinions I heard was like, hey, I like Drake's part a lot more than Future's part. That's it.
Got you. So they're okay. I get it. I get it.
I,
I
I
can
but
don't
just
know.
say that.
but Life is Good is the reason why that album won gold in the first.
That's cool. Right?
But I mean, but other than that, though, I think it's definitely a good effort from Future, and it just goes to show that he definitely could still be a force in the game. Especially amongst a lot of artists.
Well,
Yeah.
to take a turn as far as what we're talking about, unfortunately, on a sad note, one thing we should hit on this week is the Ahmaud Arbery story that's been in the news recently. It's a sad
Yeah.
case.
Yeah. This shit is. I don't even know if I was. I don't even know where I would put it in terms of like if it's the most depressing or what because of like these incidents become readily more common. I'll just say this. I think to some extent is due to the internet, us having like technological capabilities, like high quality technological capabilities that we didn't have before. So I think we're just able to see more of what's actually happening in the world and like closer to real time. But like this situation in itself is just extremely depressing.
Yeah, this situation in particular is definitely a little saddening because from what the video shows, it didn't look like Ahmad was really doing anything wrong. It looked like he was just running through a neighborhood, and the people who murdered him claimed to be practicing self defense. But when I see two to three people in a car with guns run up on somebody who is unarmed, to me that shows no sign of self-defense because at that point who's really at the disadvantage? That could be
Right.
anybody, and at that point I think one of the probably the craziest points of the story is that they weren't arrested until maybe a week or two ago, and this situation happened in February. To what you said, Spence, about some of these stories being in the media more, I think to a certain degree, I think it's a good thing, but it's also sad because we have to see these things over and over again and we get desensitized to them, and it's just how much do we have to see before there's actually some type of change? Like I just don't understand as to how somebody could be murdered and the killers go home and sit during quarantine for months. It just makes no sense to me.
I think like this whole situation, it is a shame that is now getting the national attention that it's getting after it's already happened for quite a bit of some time. But there's new things coming out online about it where they're saying, well, apparently he performed a burglary. Like he tried to rob a home, and then they try to basically the reason why they ran up to him and did what they did was because he was robbing people and they were trying to stop him. And what I'm saying is I'm not trying to defend the people that killed him because that's not what I'm doing at all. But now there's more things coming out about it, and I think it wouldn't be like this if the media paid a lot of attention to this when this first happened, and instead of this happening now where people just see now like, oh my god, this black guy just got killed by random by three, you could say, racist people. And I think it's stuff like this is super unfortunate, and I feel like this should show people to like really pay attention on what's really going on in the world and not just what you see on social media. Like, because I see a lot of stuff on social media about this coronavirus, but a lot of other things are being ignored as well. And this should be a wake up call to a lot of people like, hey, there's a lot more going on in this world than what you may think is going on. So, and it's sad, and I would just advise everybody to like really look into what's really going on and what's happened with everything on this case before you just coming out there and jumping on a bandwagon like a lot of people.
Right. I do agree with that aspect of like having more resources, being conscious of the resources out there to gather more of the information that's going on in the world outside of just this pandemic. I do agree to that. I do believe though, this situation with Ahmad, and I know you're not disagreeing. I know you're not making an excuse for his killers. I do believe, like, to me, my thing that I question is Well, for one, if there's somebody apparently allegedly breaking into homes and into abandoned home, well, homes being built,
Right.
stealing, taking, stealing stuff like that, or even if there's someone that's robbing someone, I just don't think it should be a civilian's right. And I don't, to be honest, I don't think it should be anybody's right to take another person's life. Definitely when someone's not harming another individual, especially. But I do believe, like with this situation, you just saw where like tape needs to be drawn where we say like enough's enough. Like you can't. There doesn't need to be this whole well I'm gonna police my neighborhood. We've seen the outcome from that. I think a lot of this situation it does stem from people having connections and having those relationships because I think the father was had like he was within law enforcement in that area, and I think he had from my understanding, this is what some of the information I'm getting from others and like the news says. He had a relationship with like the DA, like of
Mm.
like that area. So like a lot of this stuff becomes like, okay, this is a system, I do believe. To change the system, you have to restructure the system to some capacity from the inside out. It's just hard. It's hard to say what are the measurements for that red tape. You just because to me my issue is the biggest issue I think most people have is outside of just the killing itself is that this has been lingering for 3 months, over at least 3 months already.
Yeah.
And I don't know, to me it's very bothersome to realize that someone's life could be taken 3 months ago and only because it becomes a sensation on the news and social media and the influence of millions of people, not even thousands, millions of people, hundreds of celebrities, automatically then they say, all right, I think it's time we actually figure out how to approach the situation. Because prior to that, they were just still in the the DA has a close relationship to the dude, and so we can't really. She doesn't really want to get involved in it, so they've been looking, and the hiring process for that has been tedious, and all of these other things just to kind of move the goalposts, so everything stays stagnant, and nobody's able to like kind of come to the family rather doesn't get any closure from their child being a victim of
Right.
profiling essentially. I just think I'm very curious to see what's going to happen moving forward because now you're starting to see so many different layers getting peeled back from what I'm hearing. Um, you have situations with, I guess the owner of the home, from what I was told from somebody. I haven't fact checked this part, but from what I was told, I guess the owner of the home that was being stolen from, he asked those that family to watch over the home or whatever like that. But then the guy comes out and says, "No, I never said that." Like, and then
Yeah.
they're investigating the guy that was recording the whole killing in itself, which to me, I feel a little uncomfortable about it. I
Blows my
don't
mind.
know. Yeah, and it's like to me, I'm thinking. My question becomes like, what was your purpose? If you pretty much got a recording of a man killing somebody, like what's going on here? Like someone needs there's some questions that need to be answered. Long story short, so this situation is extremely sad. Like just prayers and condolences to his family. Definitely during a time like this. What this happened prior to our knowledge, prior to this pandemic really being at the scale that it is now. So, but I just pray for his family and hopefully they find peace through this because this is
One
a really sad situation.
one thing I want to say as well is that I saw online recently somebody tried to not necessarily defend the other side of the situation, but say as a justification, like, oh, do you know that Ahmad also brought a gun to school at some point in time? To me,
They got to kill that.
that's very irrelevant. Like by saying that, I feel like you're downplaying what actually happened right there on the street. I don't know as to when or if he had a gun in his school, but to this situation, that's not relevant. And I feel like that's just something to kind of just downplay the fact that he was gunned down in the middle of the street. Did he have a gun at that moment? I'm not sure, but as far as I know, he was unarmed. So what does that have to do with that moment that played out on camera? I just feel that that is something that shouldn't be done. I don't like that being done
It's
by
because
anybody commenting on the situation.
he's black. let's just be 100% real. It's because he's black. So people who are quick to defend the other party, or people who don't really support, the black community like that, they're quick to find unnecessary facts or anything to help support the reason why he did get murdered. And, oh, well, it's not, he should have never done this, he should have never been where, blah, 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 or what. And it just makes no sense. I feel like it's because he's black. If he wasn't black, this stuff would have been handled back when it first happened. And you wouldn't be seeing so many people, it wouldn't be such a polarizing topic, For us, it's not polarizing, right? Because for us, we're kind of like, wrong is wrong. He got murdered, and you shouldn't have somebody who isn't law enforcement, and not making it right if it was law enforcement, but especially if they're not coming out and killing an unarmed man, that wasn't even attacking back in the first place. It wasn't like he was waving a Mac 10 around, shooting around in the air, and then they came up to him and like, hey, stop that. It wasn't like that at all. I just feel like the reason why there's people, talking back on this matter is because of the color of his skin. And unfortunately, it's going to be like this for a while, until the next generation fully takes over from the guard. And I think it's super sad. And I think that once again, people should really pay attention how our society is. I'm not even going to say the world, just our society, And I feel like this, as black people, we should really stand up together and really, do the best that we can to look out for one another. And I feel like half of the community is there, but the other half isn't. And here we are,
Well, hold on. When you say community, what are you referring to? Just to clarify.
The black community, our community.
I think I agree to a large percentage of that. Like I think to some extent, I think you have more people that care than don't. But I think a lot of times it's just a lot of misdirection. I think a lot of people just question the price of standing up. And I'm not saying all, but some people. Because you see with some people where it's, okay, I could fight, but if I fight, I go to jail. If I go to jail, that means I don't have X, Y, and Z opportunities. Because I think now there's more risk. I think people assess risk a little differently before taking on those type of roles. I think it is beautiful to see when you have people that are able to align themselves together, work as one. Because sometimes and it's just the reality of it all. Like, we don't know, even during the civil rights movement, you had some, not all, but I don't know what the percentage would have been, but you had people that were just fine with segregation. Like, you had people at every element of, and I'm not even just saying this for the black race in particular, but in all elements of trying to find equality in some capacity in history. There's always a moment when you have someone that's ready to just say, well, I'm fine with it. Like, this is what we know. And then it takes the others to be able to say, okay, well, since you guys don't want to do it, we're going to go. Like, I think even, and I don't want to quote the Bible or anything like that, but I think even with Moses, correct me if I'm wrong. If I got it wrong, I apologize. But I think even with him, it was like everybody didn't want to go with him. So like, like you're always gonna have that dilution where there's always going to be some people that don't want to participate. But I think it's just the people that are focusing on creating change and being those change agents within like the system, or how whatever means are necessary. I think you have them there, and I think they're just trying to find ways. I think due to the internet, people are finding ways to work together more in unison. But even then, like, to go back to what you guys were saying earlier, I think a lot of things I think are just very nasty when someone does lose their life and you turn around and then you say, well, it's because they're this, it's because we're that. Like, even like you look back at Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Eric Gardner, all these people at first, we realize they're victims, and then somehow the media trains us to believe, well, they did this, they did this, they did this,
Right.
they did this. And like, it's kind of crazy how media can influence people that way. But I think a lot of I think a lot of it has to do with like feeding a certain stereotype that they find that some people may find more progressive, and in terms of perpetuating a certain way of thinking.
Once again, man, because it's the color. It's the color of our skin, man. That's when they want to look at the whole history of things. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to like accomplishment stuff, they treat it as of like, what have you done for me lately? But when it comes to like, incidents, oh well, let's look into the past and let's see what they did. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
to minimize the fact of what actually happened. And I think, this situation is one of those. It's kind of like it's another strong example of like us as a community. We need to unify and be a lot stronger and really really look out for one another. And because like we're not going to be defended. We're like let me take that back. We will be defended, but it takes a whole lot to get the proper defense.
It's crazy because I was speaking to my friends about, or my friend in particular, about some of the situations that were going on. He was like, well, if you were to get killed in one of these type of situations, like at least they could say that, you're in the Air Force and it'll probably make the cops look bad. And I was like, that is definitely one way of thinking about it, but that's so crazy. That's so crazy that that has to be considered,
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. Like we have to look at the way these things are handled and try to fix them. And that's not to say that all cops are bad. I think cops are necessary, but at the same point in time, it's you can't have things handled the way they've been handled for so long continue. It's just not right.
Yeah, there
right.
definitely needs to be a change, man. Because there's no way we can abolish corruption or evil people and all that. That's impossible. But a lot of it cut down from what it currently is.
Right. And I definitely agree with that. I think it's just I think slowly but surely we'll be moving ourselves from what you consider the old guard. I think
Yeah,
it's just a matter of time,
yeah,
really. I think it's like you have to like when you pay attention to like decade by decades, it's like you'll have like the 70s where it was very like pro. No, I don't even necessarily know if anti-government is the proper term, but like it was very rebellious to some extent.
mhm,
And then eventually you saw how society conformed to whatever like the world was going on, and more than likely is that time and to probably come or people just, and I'm not going to say like like revolt or anything like that, but I think people will just kind of come together just to question more or create a new standard for in terms of deeming what is acceptable or what's unacceptable.
yeah,
So I think we'll just have to see. But this situation in itself, though, regardless, is just anytime you get this type of news, it's sad. Even I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but I think something like this happened again, like in the past week on Facebook Live, I believe, where dude, I don't really know the information, but all I know the guy was killed by the police
yeah.
while he was on Facebook Live, like asking, screaming for help or something like that. So,
I I think the guy was from Indianapolis, if I'm not mistaken. And funny
yeah.
enough, he was also in the Air Force himself.
Wow.
And then
Oh
and
wow.
then yeah, so that one I don't know if it'll be publicized as much as the Ahmad thing right now, but it's definitely making its round.
Yeah, I looked up something about it, and it's weird because they started off with saying he was in a police chase. The police were chasing him. He was on like a high speed chase for like 10 minutes. It kind of makes me a little apprehensive reading it initially because you kind of set a certain tone
Yeah.
for what your opinion. Yeah, it kind of sets the tone for what your opinion will be possibly. So this whole situation is interesting in itself, but you know how it works. Each situation has a turn, and then we go on to the next situation. Unfortunately,
Yeah, it's
so
a definitely sad situation, and praise to the family. And I hope that there is a deep investigation into what's going on, and hopefully justice is served.
Yeah.
To go to another topic that we had in mind.
I was just gonna say, make sure anybody listening, make sure y'all go check out Larry June's last album. He be dropping like an album every month. You want to get yourself out of a funky mood, listen to that shit, have a good time, you know, all of that. So
Yeah. Cruise USA.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Man, this is America, man.
to go All right. Well, speaking of America, stimulus checks. Supposedly we're gonna be getting more stimulus checks. Do you have any more information on that, Law?
It's not a guarantee. It's not a shoe in that like this is happening. But the House passed like $1 trillion bill slash package, which would result in another stimulus check coming our way. Right now the basis is another 1,200, but I've read other places where it could be like 2,000. But this
Y'all gonna be
bill is
outside soon.
say that again.
Y'all gonna be back outside soon. They're gonna
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
reopen.
but
They're gonna
but
reopen
but
outside soon.
right now it's sitting at the Senate, and the Senate is mostly full of conservatives right now. It could be facing some backlash, but if it passes through the Senate in some shape or form, everybody will be getting another stimulus check. But that's like easier said than done, of course. You know what I mean? So, um, with that being said, though, it I have a theory of this whole quarantine, and I think honestly, man,
Conspiracy loud.
I think like the virus is the real deal thing, but I don't know if this virus is so severe as it's being made out to be, though. You got to hear
I'm
me out.
listening. I'm listening.
Well, more and more states are starting to open up, but America is still the number one in cases and in deaths throughout the whole world. You would figure they were treated like Italy, where everything was completely shut down, nothing, completely shut down, and it was like they were forcing, like, look, you better not come outside the house for anything outside of, of course, getting your groceries or whatever like that. Over here, you know, yeah, they businesses were closed and all that, but you would still see people going out doing certain things. And the New York governor, he just said that he's going to open certain things up again too, as well. And I'm thinking like, okay, if this thing was extremely severe as it was, I figured like they would be a lot more strict and making sure people don't go out at all unless it's for very necessary things. I think like, there's something a lot more than what we're told and shown. And so because of that, the things are playing out the way that they are. Because they said they haven't found a vaccine yet for this thing, but they're letting people slowly go back out.
There you have it, guys. We have the cozy conspiracies for the day.
Cozy conspiracies.
Cozy conspiracies. That's
I
what
was
I'm.
speaking. I was speaking with a friend of mine the other day, and she said that she thinks it's more or less of an act of Big Brother. A lot of people you hear a lot in the news, in the media, I should say, about like the Democrats are making it look a certain way, or the Republicans only care about the money. One thing that she said to me was she thought that this is all just a big act by, like, I guess, Big Brother, and essentially to reset the world economy, since essentially what she got at was seeing as how money was at one point backed by gold and how it's not anymore. It was some way to get the world more on the lines of the cryptocurrency.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly as to how that one works, but one other thing she said that was interesting was that apparently Congress is trying to pass a bill that is going to have a mandatory vaccine shot when it is made. A lot of people are saying that this mandatory vaccine is going to be the way that ties into another conspiracy as to where they have tracking chips in everyone, and that is going to be as to how they do it. How do you feel
Yeah.
about this law?
Well, I've been.
Oh, hold,
What?
hold on. Before, can you say, can you save your thought, or do you want to get your thought off? Because I got a lot. I got a lot to
Well,
say after hearing what you guys have said.
all I want to say is like I've been seeing more and more people, coming up saying like, "Hey, there's something going on with this quarantine. It's not as what it seems." And two, that microchip thing, I've been hearing that for over a decade too.
Right.
I'm not buying into conspiracy theories, but I don't think 100% of what the media says is 100% accurate neither. You'd be a complete fool if you think everything on the news about this quarantine is accurate, like 100% accurate. That's all I
Right.
reply.
So to me personally, right? One, I do believe that this is an actual serious matter. I think
Right.
I I disagree with Lau in that sense of, like, if it's so dire, why are they still opening back up despite like other countries still keeping themselves on shutdown. Well, for one, I do believe a lot of companies, a lot of retailers especially, they only have so much money. They only have so much money, so much cash to carry them and this during this time, and a lot of them they can't really afford it until like to go. They can't afford to go 7 or 8 months without like capital being without money coming in. So from that perspective, I think a lot of people opening up despite the increase in numbers, despite the increase in numbers, despite the increase in deaths. Granted, like when you actually do some of the math in some of the states, 25% of people are catching it. 1/5 to 1/4 of people that have gotten tested catch it, but then out of the people that catch it, only about 3%. And this is like the number I recognize in Delaware at least. Only 3% of people are catching it, but then only about 3% of people die from this disease. But even and the numbers are still going up. Like I think the numbers went up like maybe an extra 100 or 200. I think the numbers went up like 200 or 300 in one day in like the past week and a half or so. Because we're at almost like 8,000 cases currently in Delaware. But I think a lot of it has to do with, I think you have governments realizing there's a lot of people that are willing to protest and fight to get things back open again. And having things reopen is economically better. I think people just realize, like, hey, we'll just have to live under a new structure. Instead of waiting a year to get rid of the virus, they're like, okay, we'll do this instead. I think a lot of people, I the chip thing, I don't really know too much about. There's a possibility, but I think it's at the same time it could be some BS because I think at this moment it's possible only because you see what they did in China, and I believe in China that I think it was in China or somewhere where they were actually finding ways of like you can like cops X-ray are able to X-ray every person that walks past them, and I think they have something or some area small areas are doing research where they're implanting like chips just so they're able to keep to monitor someone's like temperatures and shit like that. But that's the only plausible way that to me that makes sense. The what is the financial aspect of like everybody going to Bitcoin? I don't know necessarily if Bitcoin would be the exact means of monetization, but I do believe this. I do believe that digital currency will play more of a contactless currency. Will play more of an important role moving in the future because we had like granted a lot of stuff that we do, even like the chip card on your credit card is like super old technology that's been around for like 60, 70 years, but we just didn't adopt it to the US until like later on. But I don't know. I think there will be a digital currency. I just don't think it. I don't necessarily think it'll be Bitcoin. It could be. Don't get me wrong. I'm nobody's financial advisor, so and I'm not like Nostradamus or no shit like that. But I would just say like I think some stuff. I think there's some conspiracies can make sense, but to me, I just feel like it just doesn't make. To me, I just don't believe those conspiracies. I think, like I said, I just think it's a money play.
I don't believe in the chip theory either, but one thing I would say is that's food for thought is that because information is so valuable nowadays and it seems like we're in a state where nobody really I think people are very hesitant to trust the media. I think let's just play with the theory a little bit hypothetically. If you were to implant a chip into somebody, what would be the purpose of that? Would it be to read their temperature? Would it be to know their whereabouts? What exactly would it do? And that's, I think, just something to think about as to what exactly would be going on. Because let's say they do put a chip in your body, you know, who knows what type of information is from that chip. And since information is so valuable at this point in time, it's something to consider.
Yeah, that's true. Go ahead.
I think that in the world that we live in, and with like a lot of things that the general masses they don't know unless they're a part of something or they do like a lot of research and digging for, you know, I feel like a lot of things are possible. I'm not gung ho on the microchip thing as other people are. So like that, I'm not really care about. I think that with this virus spreading and going on, I've heard so many different things. And one of the things like I heard was like Canada sold the virus to the Chinese to develop, and
I've heard that too.
yeah. So like,
Yeah, I've heard that one also.
so I just think like you're always going to get people that come up with like a lot of theories and stuff like that. Like, I kind of came up with the theory thinking like, it's not as severe as it seems. But, I just think that for somebody to be like, oh, well, if it doesn't come from CNN, I'm not going to listen to what anybody else has to really say. I think that's a little foolish because, that's how the government, has been moving for years, long before, I've been alive, my parents been alive and before then as well. And I just feel like that, in times like this, it's good for people to, be safe as possible and all that because the virus is a real deal thing, but also just, really be conscious and just be aware of what's really going on. Just be really conscious and aware of everything, you know what I mean? And just be very observant of things in these times, you know what I mean? Because you have a lot of people playing cheat, but a lot of people are not willing to, try to read between the lines or look outside the lines. Because when something is wrong, some people are quick to point out something is wrong, and they might not have all the facts, but at least those people can recognize, hey, something is odd. But then you'll have some people who are kind of like, oh no, nothing is wrong because these people say nothing is wrong, and that may not be true. You know what I mean? Interesting time that we're in. But I don't think everybody should be caught up in. Don't believe one thing, whether it's a conspiracy theory or not. Just look at it objectively.
I mean, I just feel like I agree. Like you got to be objective in all of your findings and
Yeah.
not just use like what the media puts out necessarily. But I do believe like there's some professionals that you can listen. I'm not gonna say you should believe just one particular person, but I
Right.
think some people are more when you recognize that some people don't go with the conventional truth, or it gives you a little bit more insight or whatever. So, but I do believe that when this whole thing is over with, we'll be stepping into like a whole new world.
Okay.
Like I know from my experience at least, like I went to like a grocery store recently, which was self checkout was typically very like easy to manage through, but now it's like they have way more shit now where it's like you got like maybe like a good 15 square feet of just space to yourself. It's really like very divisible now. I
Yeah.
do believe, and I just want to say this before we get off here. Like I do believe like when this is all said and done, we're going to be stepping into a whole new world, and like things will not be the same. Businesses will be a lot smaller but more efficient. I just read an article where Amazon now they have blackout stores. You know how you can order your groceries on Whole
Okay.
Foods or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, now they have stores. They have blackout stores because quote unquote where it's only the store is only made for people to order their groceries from, and you just pick your groceries up. So like there's no store you walk into. I'm assuming you just kind of walk into whatever the opening space is, and you just say, okay, hey, I'm here. I'm Nigel. I'm coming to pick up order 7365, and you go pick up your order 7365 for 2 pounds of bananas, a pound and a half of apples, Fuji apples or Pink Crisp or whatever the fuck it is, and you just find like that's really how things are about to be changing. That's how things are going to be changing. And that's what Amazon is currently working on from an article I read. And it wouldn't be surprising just because of the technology they have currently. But I think we're just going to be walking into a whole new world, and I just want to tell the people just be safe and be mindful of all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how things change after this. I saw an article about the office building becoming irrelevant over time, or at least changing the way things are, because companies are always looking to cut costs. And one thing that they could do to cut a cost is to not have a building that they have to supply, heat and air and electricity in. So why not just get rid of it if you don't need it? Seeing as people are at home and they're being maybe not as productive, or maybe they are being just as productive, why
If not
have them in
more,
a building? Say it again.
I was going to say if not more.
Yeah, if not
I
more.
I
Well, like why not have them just work at home and get that productivity, but cut out the cost of the building that they're working in?
Exactly. And it saves you tons of money at the end of the day. Like if I know why would I call, and plus to be honest with you, it's more beneficial just to have people work from home. Because if I give everybody, instead of having that office space, I give everybody a work phone. Now everybody has a work phone. This is the phone. This is the means of contact that I have. More likely, you're going to be working harder. I think it's going to be harder to build relationships. I think
Yeah.
outside of like that cyber connection that people try to push. When I think you have high performing people that their strong suit is their interpersonal skills that will be removed. But it's just the rules to the game. The game's all about adjusting. So yeah, it's just kind of it's just a new world that we're gonna walk into. But my
Wow.
bad for cutting you off. Go ahead.
You're good. Wow, did you have anything to say about how the outlook of things are going to change before we wrap things up?
I agree with Spence. I think that the world is going to be it's going to be different. It's just going to be interesting to see how people react to it, and it's going to be. I'm really interested in seeing how people who don't even think about things like that are going to be affected by that. Because there's a lot of people who don't. They're just worried about. They're just stuck on their own bubble. So that's going to be interesting to look at. One. I just think that this is one of those where we're telling our children or grandchildren, if you guys are blessed to have any, hey, back in my time we actually went through this, and they're going to be teaching about this stuff in school, and we're actually living through it. You know what I mean? That's what this is going to be, and for the next era of America, it's definitely gonna how that's going to be shaped is due to what we're going through right now. That's all I have to say about the outlook.
All right. Well,
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to say.
what's up?
Because when y'all were talking about like not believing the media and stuff, right? So there's somebody, I don't know what the book, I forget what the book is called, but I overheard someone talking, and they were talking about some book that they're reading on the influenza from like the early 1900s. And apparently they were saying at the time, media outlets were being controlled by the government so that they were only put out positive things because remind you, this is like the early 1900s. The only form of news at the time was either, I think, primarily press, not even radio at that as much probably. So like they controlled a lot of from what this person said from reading a book that goes back to the influenza. Pretty much the government was controlling the media because they didn't want people to freak out too much. And funny enough, I think they actually allowed people to go back out early, and it just spiked the numbers back up. And but they just put out like all this positive stuff, and the media pretty much manipulated people into believing whatever they said. Long story short, just a fun fact that I wanted to bring up.
It's food for
So,
thought.
yeah,
Don't trust the government is what he's saying.
I never said that. I just said send me donations. Get on your Cash App. You know, get on your Cash App, Saint Kitch, dollar sign Saint Kitch. You know what I'm saying? You can send all the proceeds that y'all want to send to the podcast to me. Well, I'll
Jesus.
happily, I'll take those donations and I'll make sure they're done properly. And run them donations, man. Get on your Cash App, man. It's how
Dollar
they
sign,
advise.
dollar sign FDMG. Dollar
No, no,
sign
no, no.
FDMG.
Dollar sign Saint Kitch. Dollar sign Saint Kitch. Dollar sign Saint Kitch. Now get on your Cash App. Don't do like you ain't did. Give like you given before. If you gave me 10, give me 20. If you gave me 20, give me 40. If you gave me 40, give me 50. If you give me 50, you give me 100. And brother, listen, if you can give me $100, skip that haircut. Don't go to the club. Don't buy that bottle of champagne. Don't buy that bottle of Hennessy. Donate that to me. Give me 200, man. You don't need them Tims. You're going to be stuck in the house all year. You don't need that. You don't need the bubble goose. You don't need the Gucci belt. You don't need them ugly Balenciagas. Give me that. I need
Wow,
all of that.
wow, do you have anything to say?
Everybody just keep your head up and continue to use this time to better yourself in all shapes or forms and facets of your lives, and just keep tuning in. And us three, we're gonna continue with the content. We would like to bring other different types of content as well.
And some
you
guests.
what?
And guests.
Lau not feeling the guest part.
He's like, nah, no guest on here.
No.
Said, and
Yeah,
who?
we would like guests too, but that's a conversation we'll have to have off the air. And then
Pretty much, he said no.
Pretty much.
So if you ask
No,
if you asked to come up here, and you get denied, just know it wasn't me nor Nigel. That's all I'm gonna say, because we all got to agree on it.
Look, man, I don't want nobody with small mindsets being featured. You know what I mean? So if you have the little peewee brain, little squirrel nut brain, you don't even bother just
you
asking
talking
to
heavy.
come on here. Yeah,
Yo, my man's became a civilian. He talking like he's still in the front lines.
Nah, I'm not on the front lines like how Nigel really is on the front line.
Speaking of me, I don't have much to say. Stay safe. Yeah, you've been highly advised.
God bless us. God bless us, man. God bless us.
You've been highly advised, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
Out. Yo.